A woman whose son has paranoid schizophrenia has told ITV News she fears he will become another Valdo Calocane unless he gets support. She shared details of her decades-long struggle to get her son appropriate mental health care. In response, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, told ITV News the issues raised in our report give him sleepless nights. So, how can things be changed for the better? And how can the level of risk be reduced? I'm Mary Nightingale, and this is What You Need to Know. Hello and welcome to today's episode of What You Need to Know. I'm joined by our health correspondent, Rebecca Barry. Rebecca, it sounds like a nightmare situation this woman is in. What did she tell you?
Well, she feels really desperate. She told me that she feels broken by all of this. We are protecting her identity for her protection and also for her son's privacy. We'll call her Jane. She showed me dozens of emails and messages that she sent to doctors, to mental health professionals, to MPs over the decades, asking for their help to get more mental health support for her son. In one email I saw, she wrote, "What are you going to do? Wait until he's killed me?" In another email that she sent shortly after the Nottingham attacks, in which 3 people were killed by schizophrenic Valdo Calocane, she pleads with the doctor, don't let my son become another Valdo Calocane. She says that he is a tragedy waiting to happen. Now, in Nottingham, a series of errors led to Valdo Calocane being discharged months before he went on to kill Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates. Like Valdo Calocane, Jane's son sometimes refuses to take his medication, and she wants local mental health services to intervene for his safety and the safety of others.
You ring an ambulance, they tell you to ring the police, and it just goes round and round in a circle, and you just do not get any help. You just can't believe it, that they can leave someone so vulnerable in the community with no care. It's an awful thing to say. I've planned his funeral in my head because I think I'm going to be burying my son before I die. It makes me so sad because he deserves better.
Well, what I've learned is these cases are often very complex. They can involve multiple issues and multiple agencies. There can be issues with housing, employment and other vulnerabilities. There can also be issues with substance misuse, as is the case with Jane's son. She says she feels that the authorities just think that he is a drain on resources, that he's too complex, but the NHS Trust responsible for his care told us that they do everything they can to support patients within the legal framework, balancing patient autonomy with compulsory intervention.
Give us some sort of context. How many killings are there due to mental illness?
Well, I think that's a really important point to make. I mean, the vast majority of people who kill in the UK do not have a mental illness, but it's a fact that there is an increased risk with people with schizophrenia and violent behaviour. The most recent research found that 11% of homicide convictions in the UK were mental health patients. That's an average of around 60 or 61 convictions a year. And research has found that a key factor in those cases is disengagement, or people just not getting the treatment that they need.
So what's the potential solution for this?
Well, I was given permission to go out and film with an assertive outreach team in Leeds. I went out in a car with a consultant psychiatrist and a mental health nurse as they went out visiting people with severe mental illness in Leeds. They ensure that they take their medication. They can also offer support and guidance about other issues like housing and benefits. And they explained to me that people who live with severe mental illness can often be delusional. They can be very paranoid. They might not even acknowledge that they are unwell, and therefore they're very unlikely in many cases to seek out treatment. But only 1/3 of local health systems in England have an assertive outreach team like this. Now, it's not the only solution, but NHS England has now written guidance to all those local health systems saying that they have a responsibility to provide some sort of intensive or assertive support for people who need it.
No, you also met a mother whose young son was killed due to mental health failings. What's her perspective on this?
Yeah, 12-year-old Harley Watson was killed by a car which was driven into a group of school children outside a school in Essex. The car was driven by a man called Terence Glover, a paranoid schizophrenic, and in the months beforehand he had repeatedly called 999 saying that he might do something like this. A mental health assessment to decide whether or not he should be detained lasted just 3 minutes, and then 8 weeks later he went on to kill Harley. In her first television interview, his mum, Jo, told me that he was a lovable boy and that he was her best friend. But she said that his killer was also let down.
Obviously, I see Glover as a horrific person that took my son's life, but in essence, he was failed as well. He was very, very ill, and he should have been treated. It's just the same thing we hear over and over again. Lessons will be learned, and in my opinion, nothing is happening. There's no real change.
An inquest found that failings by Essex Police and local mental health services possibly contributed to Harley's death. Both have apologised and both insist that improvements have now been made.
So where are we now? Because do I understand correctly that mental health laws are due to be reformed?
Yes, the government has promised to reform mental health laws in England and Wales to give patients more rights, more autonomy. But some people, like the families of the Nottingham victims, say that patient choice needs to be balanced against public safety. And I actually spoke to those families in Westminster as they were meeting ministers.
There have been heinous violent crimes, assaults and murders by individuals with similar situation, background, circumstances to ours, and with families who are as shattered as we are. And it's not a case of if, it's a case of when it happens next.
I'm very binary about it. As a doctor myself, killings through mental health conditions are completely avoidable. It is a catastrophic shame that they are not avoided because of simple failures.
That was the parents of Grace O'Malley Kumar and Barnaby Webber speaking to me there.
OK, so they had been to see mental health ministers. What do those who are responsible for mental health actually have to say about this?
Well, NHS England has now asked all local health systems to review the way that they engage with people with severe mental illness, and they have told them that they must no longer discharge patients if they don't turn up for appointments. I asked NHS England's National Director for Mental Health, Claire Murdoch, how confident she felt that there won't be future homicides as a result of failings. She told me that she can't say it won't ever happen again, but she says that she is very confident that teams across the country are working very hard to improve and expand their services. Meanwhile, I spoke to the Health Secretary earlier this week, and he said that the issues raised in our report give him sleepless nights. And he said that as part of those reforms of the Mental Health Act, he will now look into tightening up the supervision and control of patients who pose a risk to themselves or others. And the Health Secretary agreed to meet Jane, the woman who shared her story with us.
OK. Rebecca Barry, thank you very much. And thank you for listening. For more on this, head over to our website or to ITVX and do have a look back through our other quick briefings on a range of headline topics to find out what you need to know. Until next time, thanks for listening.